Hello guys, welcome to my channel where stories filled with revenge, moral lessons, and love are told. If you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to like, share with your friends, and subscribe for more. My name is Alina, I am 34 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I grew up living in the shadow of my younger sister, Marissa. It wasn't something that happened overnight, it was years of little decisions, small comments, and daily choices that made it clear to me I was the afterthought while Marissa was the sun around which everyone else revolved. My parents, Helen and Richard, adored her. To them, she was a brilliance incarnate, the one destined to shine. And me? I was the one who had to figure things out on my own. When I was 12, I realized the difference most sharply. I asked my mom for new shoes for school because mine had holes at the sides, and she sighed, telling me, "You know how things are tight right now. Maybe you can make them last a little longer." But that same weekend, she and Dad surprised Marissa with a new easel, sketchbooks, and a whole set of oil paints because she wanted to explore her artistic side. I wore those worn-out shoes for months while watching my sister's room fill with canvases, brushes, and praise. I was never jealous of her art, not really. What stung was how invisible my own needs seemed compared to hers. If I asked for tutoring help, it was framed as me being too demanding. If Marissa asked, suddenly there was a budget for private lessons. By the time we hit high school, I had understood the rules of the house. Marissa was the golden child, and I was the one who had to survive in her shadow. I worked part-time jobs as soon as I was legally old enough. Babysitting, grocery bagging, late-night shifts at the diner didn't matter, as long as I was earning something. That money wasn't for luxuries, it was survival. I paid for my own books, my own clothes, even saved for college bit by bit. My parents noticed, but instead of seeing resilience, they saw it as proof that I didn't need much help. Marissa, on the other hand, had her tuition for art school covered, her supplies bought, her rent paid when she moved out to the city for college. It all came to a head when I was 29. I had finished school, built a career I was proud of, and was finally putting away some real savings. Marissa, meanwhile, opened an art gallery. I wanted to be happy for her, but from the very beginning, the math didn't make sense. She was renting a huge downtown space with sky-high rent, spending lavishly on renovations and fancy furniture, yet her art sales were inconsistent at best. My parents poured their retirement money into helping her, convinced she just needed a little more time for her genius to be recognized. One night, Mom called me. I was at my apartment, exhausted from a long day at work, when she started with small talk before slipping in the real reason for the call. "Alina," she said softly, "your sister just needs one last boost. $30,000. That's it. You've always been good with money, and you're doing well now. This could really help her get over the hump." I sat in silence for a moment, my stomach churning. 30,000. That was my safety net, years of hustling and grinding. "Mom," I finally said, "I can't just hand over $30,000 without a plan. Has she made a budget? Has she even tried to restructure the business? What's the repayment timeline?" Her tone turned sharp. "Why are you always so suspicious of her? She's your sister. She has a gift. You're acting selfish." That word selfish hit me harder than she knew. For years I had been sacrificing silently, pushing myself to build stability with no help from them. And now, because I wanted accountability, I was selfish. I took a deep breath, trying not to let my voice shake. "I'm not giving her the money, Mum. I love Marissa, but this is reckless. I won't throw away my future just because you refuse to admit this isn't working." There was a pause, then a cold reply. "If that's how you feel, maybe you don't need to be part of this family anymore." The line went dead after that. That night, I cried not just because of the words, but because a part of me had always known this was coming. I was only valuable to them when I could be useful to Marissa. My worth was measured in how much I could sacrifice for her. And since I wasn't willing to give them what they wanted, I was disposable. The next morning, my father called, not to reconcile but to confirm what my mother had said. His voice was steady, like he was reading from a script. "You've made your choice. Don't expect us to come running when you regret it. We'll be here for Marissa. That's what family does." The words echoed in my head for weeks. Family. That's what family does. But what about what family should do? Shouldn't family also support, respect, and love each other? Shouldn't family care about fairness, about listening? I stopped expecting their calls after that. Birthdays passed without a word. Holidays came and went. For 5 years, silence stretched between us. And in that silence, I rebuilt myself. I bought a house, an old place with character in a quiet neighborhood, something I could finally call my own. My friends and neighbors became my chosen family, people who showed up, who laughed with me, who checked in on me when life got heavy. Slowly, the ache of abandonment softened into something else. Resolve. But beneath that resolve, a tiny part of me still wondered if one day they would reach out not because of what I could give, but because they truly wanted me back. That hope, fragile and unspoken, lingered like a shadow in the corners of my heart. 5 years had passed since that phone call. 5 years of silence from my parents and from Marissa. I had learned to live without them. Built a life that didn't include the constant tug of comparison or the weight of expectations that were never meant for me. My house became my sanctuary, a 2-story brick home tucked between maple trees, its creaking floors and stained glass windows carrying a kind of history that comforted me. The neighbors waved when I passed. Friends filled my weekends with warmth. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like a shadow. That was why the message from my mother caught me so off guard. It came on a Thursday afternoon while I was at my desk, emails flooding in, deadlines circling. The notification blinked across my phone. We'd like you to come to dinner this weekend. We miss you. My chest tightened. After half a decade of silence, this was the first time she had reached out. I stayed at the words, half convinced it was some mistake, but when I read them again, my hands trembled. I thought about ignoring it, letting it vanish into the void like so many of the texts I'd wished would appear over the years but never did. But a part of me, the part that still craved closure, that still wanted to believe they could change, typed back, "What's the occasion?" Her response was quick. "No occasion. Just family. We want to see you." So, against the pit of dread forming in my stomach, I agreed. Saturday night, I pulled into my parents' driveway. The house looked the same, the white paint peeling in patches, the flower beds struggling under weeds, the porch light buzzing against moths. I sat in my car for a long moment, gripping the steering wheel, wondering if I was making a mistake. Finally, I forced myself out, the cool air brushing against my skin as I walked to the front door. When my mother opened it, she smiled as though no time had passed at all. "Alina!" she exclaimed, pulling me into a hug so tight I could barely breathe. Her perfume was the same, a sharp floral scent that stung my nose. My father appeared behind her, his face a careful mask of warmth, though his eyes didn't quite match. Inside, the dining table was already set. And there, sitting at the head of the table with a glass of wine in her hand, was Marissa. She looked different, older, thinner, her hair styled in a way that tried to look effortless but screamed of exhaustion. She stood up, arms outstretched. "Look who finally decided to show up," she said, her voice half teasing, half cold. I sat down, tension pulling at my shoulders. The small talk began. How was work? How was the house? Wasn't it nice to be together again? For a moment, I almost let myself believe it. But then my father cleared his throat, his fork clinking against his plate, and the air shifted. "There's something important we need to discuss," he said. His tone was steady, but his words hung heavy in the room. I glanced between them, my pulse quickening. "What is it?" My mother reached across the table, her hand brushing mine as though to soften the blow. "It's about Marissa. She's been going through a hard time again." "The boutique," she trailed off, glancing at my sister. Marissa sighed dramatically, placing her glass of wine down. "The economy has been brutal. The foot traffic isn't what it used to be, and the rent, well, you know how landlords are. I just need a little help to get things back on track." I felt my stomach twist. The words were familiar, almost rehearsed, like echoes from years ago. I leaned back in my chair. "What kind of help?" My father's eyes met mine. "We want you to sell your house." The words hit me like a slap. I laughed, not because it was funny but because it was so outrageous I couldn't contain it. "Sell my house? Are you serious?" Marissa tilted her head, her voice laced with condescension. "Come on, Alina, it's just a house. You can always buy another one. This is family. Don't you care about your family?" Heat surged through me, my pulse roaring in my ears. "That house is everything I've worked for. Everything I built when you all abandoned me. And now you want me to throw it away so you can bail Marissa out again." My mother's expression hardened. "You've always been so ungrateful. Marissa has real talent, a gift. We can't let her fail because you're being stubborn." "Ungrateful," I repeated, my voice trembling with anger. "Do you even remember how I put myself through school while you poured everything into her? Do you remember how you cut me off when I refused to give you my savings? And now, after 5 years of silence, you only reach out because you want my house? That's not family. That's exploitation." The table fell silent for a moment, the weight of my words sinking in. My father slammed his hand down, rattling the silverware. "You will not talk to your mother like that. This is about sacrifice. Family sacrifice for each other." "No," I said firmly, my voice steady now. "Families support each other. Families respect each other. What you're asking isn't sacrifice, it's servitude. And I won't do it." Marissa's face twisted in disgust. "So you're really going to let me drown? After everything I've been through?" "You put yourself here," I said coldly. "And Mom and Dad let you. You've never been held accountable for anything in your life. That ends now." The shouting started, then my parents accusing me of betrayal, Marissa crying dramatically into her napkin, claiming I was jealous of her, that I had always been bitter. I sat there, silent now, letting them spew their venom until I finally stood, my chair scraping against the floor. "I came here hoping maybe you changed," I said, my voice breaking. But all you've done is prove me right. I don't owe you my house. I don't owe you my life. You made your choice 5 years ago when you turned your back on me. And now, I'm making mine. I walked out of that dining room, their voices following me down the hall, but I didn't look back. Outside, the night air felt sharp against my skin, but it was cleansing. For the first time in years, I felt the power shift. I wasn't the forgotten one anymore. I was the one who refused to be used. The night I walked out of that dinner, I told myself I was done. Done with their demands. Done with the endless cycle of Marissa's failures being treated as my responsibility. Done with the illusion that blood alone defined family. But even as I tried to move forward, their voices lingered in my head. I expected them to blow up my phone for a few days and then disappear again, but what followed went far beyond anything I had imagined. The messages started the next morning. My phone buzzed with text after text, long paragraphs from my mother about duty, sharp boasts of anger from my father, and self-pitying rants from Marissa. They filled my voicemail, left comments under old social media posts, even tagged me publicly, trying to shame me into action. At first, I deleted them, blocking numbers one after another. But every time I silenced one account, another popped up. Their words grew nastier with each attempt. You'll regret this. You'll end up alone. That house won't save you. I leaned on my chosen family, then my neighbors, my co-workers, the friends who had stood by me through the years. They told me to stay strong, to ignore the noise. I tried, but ignoring became impossible the night I came home to find my front door ajar. I froze on the porch, my keys shaking in my hand. The lock had been forced, the wood splintered around the frame. My chest tightened as I pushed the door open, calling out in a shaky voice, "Hello." Silence. The kind of silence that presses on your ears. I stepped inside, and my heart sank. My living room was in shambles. Couch cushions slashed, picture frames shattered, drawers pulled open and emptied onto the floor. I walked through the wreckage, numb, until I reached the study where I kept my documents. Files lay scattered across the desk, papers torn, cabinets rifled through. It didn't take long to understand they hadn't just broken in to vandalize. They had been searching for proof of my mortgage, for loopholes, for something they could use to pry my house away from me. I felt rage like fire in my veins. This wasn't desperation anymore. This was a violation. They had crossed a line I couldn't ignore. My hands shook as I called the police, my voice breaking as I explained what had happened. Officers arrived, surveyed the damage, and within hours I had given them the names of the only people I knew who would go this far, my parents and Marissa. For a moment, I almost doubted myself. I almost convinced myself that family doesn't do this, that maybe I had misunderstood. But when the officers found fingerprints that matched, the doubt burned away. It was them. My family had broken into my sanctuary, destroyed the one place where I had felt safe, all because I wouldn't hand my life over for Marissa's mistakes. Pressing charges was the hardest decision I've ever made, but I knew I had to. I sat in that police station, my palms sweating, and told the officer, I want to move forward with this. I want them held accountable. My voice cracked, but it was steady enough. What followed was months of hearings, paperwork, testimonies. My parents looked at me across the courtroom with icy stares, as though I were the one betraying them. Marissa wept on the stand, painting herself as a victim of circumstance, of a cruel world that hadn't appreciated her art or her boutique. But even her tears couldn't hide the truth. The financial records laid bare her massive debts, her reckless spending, her dependence on everyone else to clean up her messes. The judge listened patiently, but when the verdict came down, it was clear the law had no sympathy for their excuses. My parents received probation for the break-in, stripped of the moral high ground they had clung to for decades. Marissa was sentenced to community service and ordered to attend mandatory financial counseling. They were also required to pay restitution for the damage to my home. The civil case that followed settled quietly, covering the repairs I needed to feel secure in my house again. Walking out of that courthouse, I felt lighter than I had in years. It wasn't joy, it was something deeper, a release. For so long I had carried the weight of trying to prove myself, to earn their love, to justify my choices. Now, standing in the crisp morning air, I realized I didn't need their love anymore. I didn't need their approval. What I needed was peace, and I had finally taken it for myself. The months that followed were a process of rebuilding not just my home, but my sense of safety. My chosen family rallied around me, neighbors showing up with tools, friends bringing food, laughter echoing in the rooms that had once been ransacked. Together, we painted walls, repaired shelves, and replaced broken glass. Every nail, every brushstroke felt like reclaiming my life. Then, a year later, an envelope arrived in my mailbox. The handwriting on the front was unmistakable Marissa's looping scrawl. I stood there on the porch for a long time, debating whether to rip it up unopened. But curiosity won. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Alina, it read, I don't expect forgiveness. I know what I did was wrong. I let everyone carry me, and I hurt you most of all. I'm sorry. I'm trying to do better now. I folded the letter carefully and set it aside. The apology didn't erase the past, but it marked something important. Acknowledgement. Maybe she would change, maybe she wouldn't. But either way, it wasn't my burden anymore. As I looked around my home restored, filled with laughter and love from the people who had stood by me, I understood something I wished I'd learned sooner. Family isn't just blood. Family is respect, support, healthy boundaries. Family is who shows up, who protects your peace, who doesn't demand you set yourself on fire to keep them warm. And for the first time, I truly believe that I had chosen my family well. Moral lesson. If you've stayed with me until now, let me leave you with this. Sometimes the deepest cuts come not from strangers, but from the people we call family. We spend years thinking we must endure, that loyalty means sacrificing everything, even ourselves. But loyalty without respect is just chains. True family isn't about shared last names or childhood photos. It's about the people who honor your boundaries, celebrate your growth, and protect your peace. I learned that survival isn't selfish. Choosing yourself isn't betrayal. It's the bravest act of love. You can give the love you owe yourself first. And when you choose yourself, you create space for a family that is chosen, not forced. People who lift you, not drain you. People who add to your joy, not your pain. So, if you've ever felt like the forgotten one, if you've been told you're selfish for protecting what you've built, remember this. Your worth doesn't depend on their approval. You are enough, and you are allowed to walk away. Guys, if this story touched you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters here.